Caherlock. Minister, you know, on the face of it, this seems like a reasonable bill, and I'm sure it's well intentioned, and maybe it's the right thing to do. If I understand it correctly, to give the Department of Education some input and oversight in terms of the work of TUSLA in relation to educational welfare. That's pretty much it, isn't it? But with things having been transferred one way and then being transferred back another way, you would be forgiven for thinking there's a bit of pass the parcel and moving around deck chairs on the Titanic kind of thing. Now, I'm not saying that is the case, but when you look at the substantial issues that we're talking about, more to the point, the human beings, children and their families that all of this relates to, then the importance of what Deputy Durkin was talking about earlier on, about sort of things being cohesive, continuous, integrated across departments, and in particular when you're talking about the welfare of the vulnerable, and particularly those with disability and special needs, there is a real problem. Let's just start with that. There's an awful lot of children with special needs and with disability that are being let badly down. Badly down. And of course they do cross over different departmental demarcation lines in their needs, because of course human beings don't fit neatly into departmental silos. Whether they are child and family agency, education, or housing, as I will move on to, because of course one of the needs of people with disability, with special needs, when they get to a certain age, is they also need to be housed. So that's another area that becomes very important, and these things need to be joined up. And certainly when you look at the sort of stuff that we have, and I'm sure you have, coming into you from families where there are children with disability and special needs, there is a distinct lack of cohesion and integration, and a lack of willingness often of this department or that section of the department to take responsibility, because it's always somebody else's responsibility to sort these things out. So that worries me. And in that regard, I want to give you an instance. It has been brought to your attention, but I think it kind of dramatises quite a bit. And it'd probably be best if I just read directly the words of the mother of one such vulnerable child, because she wants to communicate this to you specifically and to the government. I'll obviously delete names, reference of names, and whether you yourself have seen this correspondence, I don't know, but as far as I understand, I've raised it once before in here, I think with the Taoiseach, who said he would bring it, I think, back to your attention, but you may have seen it as well. But it's instructive, and it's pretty awful, to be honest. My name is, I'll take out the name, and my child's name is, he has a diagnosis of autism and also learning disability. He is an extremely vulnerable child. Sorry, actually, I'll just read the first one. He's 17 years of age. For the last 3 years now, the Child and Family Agency, TUSLA, have been involved in our lives. In March 2019, I had no other option but to place my vulnerable special needs child in voluntary care with the Child and Family Agency. And 17, obviously, this is school-going age as well, right? So let's not forget that. And to my knowledge, he hasn't been at school since. Due to very violent, abusive behaviour at home, linked to his condition. This has been a horrific ordeal for my son. He was placed in a mainstream residential unit in Wexford. This placement broke down in May, that's of this year, due to dangerous behaviour and property damage. I was then told either to take him home or to put him into a homeless hostel in Blanchardstown. I took him home in May of this year. TUSLA provided no support for nearly 10 weeks. The guards were invoked Section 12 and put him back in the care of the Child and Family Agency due to an extremely serious incident in the home. I then refused to sign a voluntary care order and decided to go to court as I felt they were trying to throw my vulnerable child into homeless services when in fact he needed and still needs special care. My son has so far been in 2 homeless hostels, a hotel and a semi-independent living apartment. None of this is suitable or appropriate. This matter is going before the court. I've made very serious complaints to the Ombudsman for Children and to TUSLA. I've been advised by my legal team to contact you, that's me, in a desperate need of your help. I need this matter brought before the Dáil as a matter of urgency. My child's life depends on it, as he is at serious risk of death due to misadventure. His disability is not being recognised and the correct treatment is not being provided. My son and I are being denied our constitutional rights. The Child and Family Agency are neglecting my very vulnerable child. This needs to be highlighted in the most serious way. I've been asking for over 2 years for an ASD unit, a residential ASD, but he's still in homeless accommodation and wandering the streets. And he is, this is his mother's opinion, he's being abused and brutalised on the streets. And she holds the Child and Family Agency responsible. That was written in September, and she written one subsequently, where it seems there may have been some correspondence with your office. My email is in response to an email received by my solicitor from the Office of Minister Gorman. I want to know when would the Minister be in a position to intervene, given the fact that TUSLA is a government agency and we have proven over and over again before court that TUSLA are not fulfilling their constitutional duties to my son, a special needs, vulnerable child. These are the facts. Maybe the Minister would comment if my child ends up dead. If Minister O'Gorman is the Minister for Children in this country, then surely this matter will be taken very seriously by the Minister now that it has been brought to attention. After all, he is the one with the platform in the country to be the voice of the children and highlight the very serious failures to children in this country. It was noted in the Minister's email that a placement was identified for my son and he wishes all the best. Well, that's very nice, but I seem to remember receiving a similar email from the Minister the last time I got a placement, which then subsequently broke down because it wasn't suitable. I want the Minister to know that we really haven't come far from the time of the industrial schools. The only difference now is that children are not put in these schools, they're thrown in the streets by our own government agency to be exploited, battered, brutalised and forever traumatised because we do not have the facilities or services or correctly trained people to deal with these vulnerable, mentally ill, autistic children. It's absolutely disgusting that nothing is being done. I won't carry on, but I think you get the flavour. There is more. Now that is very, very disturbing, and talking to the mother, you know, it is beyond belief that that vulnerable child is being thrown into homeless accommodation. It's beyond belief that anybody is in homeless accommodation, but it is absolutely unacceptable and beggars belief that a child that is on the radar of the Child and Family Agency with these needs, and they are acute, is a severe form of autism, but we have to have the services. We have to have the services. And that is not acceptable. And it is a fair analogy for the mother to say that that is the modern day equivalent of the industrial schools if we don't provide those services, and that essentially a young and vulnerable child is thrown to the wolves. So, first of all, Minister, I would ask you to, it won't be hard for you, I think, to find out what correspondence has gone between your department and that family, and I would ask you as a matter of urgency to do so. But it points to something bigger, doesn't it, which the mother finishes her email with, which is just the lack of services, the lack of trained staff who actually know how to deal with these. And this is apparent in the area of autism and special needs across the board. People not getting the assessments that they are legally entitled to, and then when they do, get their assessments and their needs are identified, not getting the services. And from what I can see, the problem is, well, there's a few problems, but one are silos wanting to absolve themselves of responsibility. But often the reason for that is also because they lack the resources. And so they want it to be somebody else's problem. And so things get pushed around, pass the parcel. And will it actually solve anything? So what do we need? It needs to be needs-led. Right? We have to start with the needs, and then we have to provide the services necessary to meet the needs. It can't be based on what suits a particular silo or what quota of resources we've decided are available, which we will then spread across the need, and usually spreading it very, very thinly. So thinly that it's not actually providing the support that is needed. And these are, as Deputy Durkan was saying earlier on, these are life-changing issues, right? Because you get the support, it makes all the difference in the world. For you, your family, for your future. You don't get it, and the damage can be absolutely permanent and sometimes fatal. Sometimes fatal. And we don't talk enough about when children move out of school, just at threshold, and we've talked quite a lot, and rightly so, about the early intervention, about school, but then at that moment when you move beyond those things, or you're on that threshold. So we have to do this, and we are signed up to the UNCRPD and all that. We actually have an obligation to do this. Not that we should need UN conventions to tell us to do the right thing. We should just do it because it is the right thing. One area that I'm certainly aware of that does tell me a bit, right? Maybe not all the answer, and I'm not an expert in these things, but one of the issues that I got an absolutely astonishing response on, and it was only because somebody from my constituency called me up who was studying psychology, right, and wanted to work in precisely this kind of area, caring for the vulnerable, was trying to do a doctorate in psychology, and she described to me the extraordinary difficulty she's having as somebody who's from a relatively modest background and doesn't have a lot of financial means in actually progressing to the point where she's a doctorate and then can work precisely providing supports to children like this. And I raised it in here and it went absolutely viral, and I'd never had so much communication on anything for years because so many people out there said, absolutely right. We've loads of young people who want to work in these areas, loads of them. But because we're making it so difficult, even at that level of getting their doctorates, they all go off to Germany, to Utrecht, to Belgium to study, and a lot of them don't come back because they don't have to pay fees there, the accommodation is affordable there, whereas we make it difficult. They can't afford to live here. They want to work here, they want to be helping young and vulnerable children, and indeed older vulnerable people, but they can't. They're qualified, they're intelligent, they don't want to move out of this country, but we're not able to retain them because we make life so difficult for them. Right? I mean, surely we should be able to put all the talent and ability, human ability we have in this country to meet the needs of those vulnerable children together with those vulnerable children and vulnerable people. It shouldn't be rocket science, and yet we fail to do it. And that's bringing in another department, isn't it? Higher education. Another one. Right? Another silo, potentially, unless we can join these things up. So yes, in theory, this is about trying to join a couple of dots. So yeah, we'll support it, but you hear what I'm saying, Minister. And I hope you're hearing about this particular individual case and will respond to it.